supposed to be the weekend getaway of a lifetime in the heart of the Lone Star State.
They came to Houston to party and enjoy the nightlife.
He was doing what guys usually do, get girls, have a good time.
But the party's over when a shooting starts.
There were gunshots ringing throughout the neighborhood.
Harris County 911.
I don't know where I'm at, but they shooting. I'm scared.
He's shot multiple times, in the chest, in the arm, just everywhere.
This was a very dire situation.
Were these tourists simply victims of bad luck? Or were there more sinister factors at play?
What? I remember just thinking to myself, like, this can't be happening. How? Why?
It just didn't make sense. This person isn't even from the city.
As detectives work to unravel this mystery, they will learn trust is a luxury few can afford.
This was a very toxic situation.
Come on.
I think it's a passion-fueled, jealousy-fueled crime.
We got anybody dead now from a certain type of way.
I have no problem. I didn't know they were people from it.
Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the truth, but that's what we did here.
This was a cold, calculated murder.
June 28th, 2021. It's not yet daylight in Houston, Texas, a city that attracts millions of tourists every year to enjoy its sports, restaurants, and world-class nightclubs.
Houston is a large city, and we have a very vibrant nightlife. It is an attraction, especially down in the southwest part of Houston.
If you come to Houston, you're going to be welcomed, you're going to enjoy a lot of great food, a great time, great party atmosphere.
But in the early hours of this Monday morning, the city is suddenly thrown into chaos.
Just around 3 a.m., there was an influx of 911 calls.
Harris County 911.
We think we might have just heard gunshots.
Oh my God, somebody shooting me.
They're still shooting right now?
I'm scared. I'm in the back of my car. For sure.
By the sound of the reports, at least one person has already been injured.
Can someone from? Hurry up, please.
Police race to the scene of the crime, a home in the affluent Houston neighborhood of Old Oaks.
It's a quiet neighborhood. This is unusual to have this type of disturbance.
When officers arrived, they were fully prepared to confront an armed shooter.
But instead, they only find the aftermath of the violent attack.
They see this young man in dire need. He's shot multiple times, in the chest, in the arm, just everywhere.
He's been pummeled with shots. Whomever shot him meant to do intentional and extensive damage, because they did.
It's really bad, yet he's still breathing.
There were some witnesses gathered around, and they were very distraught.
The young man's friends identify him as 28-year-old Gregory Moore.
Gregory Moore was losing blood fast.
They wanted to get him to the nearest hospital so that he could get to the emergency room.
Time was of the essence if they were going to save this man's life.
New York native Gregory Moore's outgoing personality and warm-hearted demeanor meant he had no trouble making friends.
He was a great, great friend. You could never just be mad at him, even when you wanted to be. You know, he just made you laugh. He was funny. He was a goofball.
He was just one of those guys who seemed like he could get along with anyone, always the life of the party.
But Gregory wasn't just the life of the party. He was also a dedicated father.
We had a family young. He was an amazing dad. He was not the disciplinary. He was the fun parent. He was the kind of parent that would be like, it's raining out, don't go to work today, let's stay home and watch movies. Or let's put a bunch of blankets on the floor and let the kids just do what they want.
However, As much as Greg loved his children, the pressures of parenthood put a strain on his relationship with their mother, Tatiana Anderson.
We were together for 10 years, so time took its course on our relationship, and we kind of had to separate to figure ourselves out.
Greg started to date other people and had a child with another woman in 2018.
By the summer of 2021, Greg was focused on being the best parent he could be and building his career.
He used to work the night shift. He was a community technician, so he was on the front line with the population that is undeserved the most. He had gotten to a place where he didn't know if that was something he wanted to continue to pursue. So he was thinking of going to trade school and just trying to build from that. He was talking about opening a business.
And in June of that year, Gregory decided to take a well-deserved break from the stresses of life by planning a trip with his closest friends.
Gregory and his friends came down to Houston to have a good time, have a boys' weekend, and just enjoy themselves.
They rent a high-end rental in Houston, Texas, and prepare for a few days of R&R and social get-down.
But instead of enjoying a weekend savoring the sights and sounds of a new city, the group's dream vacation has just become a waking nightmare.
Police responded to a string of 911 calls and found Gregory Moore unresponsive and losing blood fast.
He has multiple gunshots, including his neck, his back, his arms, his chest.
His carotid artery was severed. His lung was punctured. Just horrible injuries.
He's clinging to life and barely has a pulse.
Paramedics rush Gregory to the nearest hospital, hoping for a miracle.
His life essentially at this moment is hanging in the balance.
In the summer of 2021, Brooklyn resident Gregory Moore was enjoying a weekend in Houston with his closest friends.
He's young, black, handsome, trying to be successful, trying to make it.
When Gregory Moore and his friends rented that Airbnb in the suburbs of Houston, they thought that they were going to have a fun, ritzy, exciting weekend.
But just 2 days into their trip, the group's vacation has just turned into a catastrophe.
One of his friends had called me, and he was hysterical. And he was like, Greg has been shot. That's it. Nothing else. I'm hundreds of miles away. I didn't know what to do.
En route to the hospital, first responders discover he's been shot at least 10 times.
For the whole night, I sat on the couch. And I just waited. And me and his mom were texting, and she was like, oh, he was in ICU and he was gonna live.
Meanwhile, as the sun comes up over Houston, homicide detectives arrive on the scene of the shooting to begin their investigation.
When I arrived at the scene, multiple patrol units were already there. They had detained numerous individuals that had been in the home. As I walked up, I observed there be a large amount of blood on the front porch.
On the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama.
They also saw
Police
shell
made a grisly
casings
discovery.
on the ground from a 9mm.
You've got what looks to be
The front of the house
execution-style
was
murders.
littered with bullets.
That's nuts. That's crazy.
It's so shocking because it shows the rage
dedicated
that the gunman had.
Another contact wound.
It seems that the shooter ambushed the victim, rolled up, shot him, and then left.
The more people I talk to, I'm on my
Near
way.
the front door,
I can figure out
investigators locate Gregory's cell phone.
You could
but
tell
that's
that
not
this
the
was
only
not
phone
your
they
typical
find
homicide.
at the scene.
They find another cell phone
Missing
and a
persons
tablet
case.
that
The
looks like it's
detective
been
will
run
follow
over.
one jaw-dropping lead.
They were in the street. in front of the house.
He says this guy Buck is an
It looks like this is some sort of physical evidence from the shooter.
In a brutal,
Unfortunately,
double
the
homicide.
investigators aren't able to access the devices.
These two
It's
additional
almost like giving a
devices
priest
are
a
locked.
confession.
And not only that, the tablet has been damaged.
Extracting all the digital contents of the phones.
Alabama, just outside
That takes
of
months.
Birmingham.
The detectives don't have that kind of time to
Jefferson
waste.
County is the most
If you
populous
have an
county in
armed
the
shooter on the
state.
loose, you need answers now.
It has deep
Why would
ties to the
someone
civil
want to
rights
hurt
movement.
Gregory?
These people had just
The
traveled
town
here.
we're in
They
is
were
called
tourists.
Mulga.
Gregory Moore
This
is
is a
not
small
from Houston,
sleepy
Texas.
hamlet.
He's from New York, and so
It's a
this
rural
doesn't make
area
any sense.
filled with hard-working families.
That's when
This place
detectives
looks
are
a bit
approached
like a
by a
town that
neighbor.
time forgot.
Hey, detectives.
But back in
I have something I think you'll want to
2011,
see.
this very neighborhood will be
The
at the
neighbor
heart
had a
of
doorbell
brutal
camera
murder
that
mystery.
picked up some useful footage.
He's able to share the video with
The
them.
morning of March 5th, 2011,
It's not
the
the
Jefferson
greatest
County
quality of
Sheriff's
video,
Office
but
gets
detectives
multiple
can see the
calls
shooter's
about
vehicle
shots
arrive
fired.
around 3 a.m. And it's a
On the
dark
300 block
sedan.
of First Avenue.
Seconds later, a barrage of
When
gunshots
deputies
ring
arrive
out.
on scene, they find a black man lying in the middle of the street with an obvious gunshot wound to his head.
As responding officers begin their
when the
search of
gunshot
the
stopped.
immediate area and the
Being
perimeter.
recorded at the end of this tragic evening.
On the phone video, you can see someone running away from the crime scene.
They jumped into the vehicle and pulled off. However, the cell phone video is too dark to identify exactly who this person is.
They aren't able to make out the vehicle's license plate from the video either.
As compelling as this evidence is, it doesn't do much to help the investigators narrow down their list of suspects.
We had no idea who the person was. Right now, we have to identify this guy.
However, before they can continue their investigation, Detective Crane receives a call from the hospital where Gregory is being treated.
Yes, this is Detective Crane.
They get a call that Gregory Moore has succumbed to his extensive injuries.
Gregory Moore was dead.
Houston detectives investigating the shooting of 28-year-old tourist Gregory Moore have just learned that he succumbed to his injuries.
He was pronounced deceased there at the hospital. It's a tragedy. It's the worst part of my job.
When the news spreads to Gregory's loved ones back in Brooklyn, they're devastated and confused.
And I remember just thinking to myself, like, this can't be happening. Not Greg. How? Why? I think in that moment, the air just left my body. My daughter had just graduated pre-K. And my son was going to kindergarten the following September. And I remember thinking to myself, how was I going to explain to them that he wasn't coming back?
Gregory had flown down to Houston with 3 friends, Raymond Gibbs, Clayton Barnes, and Troy Walsh. And the investigators' next move was to speak to them to see what they knew.
Gregory's friends are distraught when the detectives break the news to them.
Well, here's the deal. Gregory didn't make it, okay? So, we're gonna do what we can to figure out who and why, but it's gonna require some help from y'all, okay?
Gregory's friends are distraught. This was supposed to be a fun weekend in Houston.
They came all this way just to have a good time.
The detectives asked Greg's friends if they have any idea who the shooter was.
Is there anything you can think of that would help us in identifying?
The friends explain they'd only been in Houston for a couple of days.
We got out on Saturday around 3 o'clock. They went out Saturday night to have a good time.
Did y'all have any issues with anyone Saturday night?
No, we had no issues with anyone.
In fact, Gregory's friends say he'd hit it off with someone at the bar that night.
We learned that the victim had met a female at a club the previous night, on Saturday night, the same night they arrived.
My friend met these girls, and I guess we were talking to them, and then I had took one of the girls' number, he took one of the girls' number.
The woman Greg exchanged numbers with was named Stacy, and her friend Michelle exchanged numbers with Clayton.
They were doing what guys usually do: talk to girls, get girls, have a good time for the weekend.
The following night, Greg invited Stacy over to the rental house to keep the party going.
They were all just partying and having a good time. There was some more flirting happening between Greg and Stacy.
And eventually, Stacy suggested that they go pick up Michelle.
My friend wanted to come pretty much to the place, so we're like, okay. Greg asked me if I wanted to drive, and they're gonna come with me. I'm like, cool.
And so they left the Airbnb, traveling back down into Southwest Houston.
But along the way, their plans changed when Michelle decided to stay in for the night.
Her friend decided she wasn't coming anymore. Okay. We're like, all right, cool, whatever.
And that ultimately led to them turning around and driving back up to where the Airbnb was located.
By the time they made it back, Clayton was feeling hungry, so he decided he was going to go pick up something to eat.
Have a good night.
We get back here, and I'm like, yo, I'm not gonna lie, I'm starving. They're like, all right, cool, we're gonna go inside and lay down. Okay. I'm like, that's cool. So I literally drive in the front to drop them off, and they walking.
Clayton says as Greg and Stacy approached the front door of the Airbnb, all hell broke loose.
That's when they are ambushed.
I see a guy just running from the side of the grass, and I see a little flashing light, and then all I heard was shots going off.
Clayton took cover and dialed 911.
Please, someone from. Hurry up, please.
Everyone knows what happened to Gregory, but where was Stacy?
The kids in the house did not know where the girl had gone. That caused us concern. We don't know who this girl is or what has happened to her.
There is not a last name, unfortunately.
Did she run away? Is she with the perpetrator?
So detectives start exploring all avenues to track Stacy down.
Stacy's friend Michelle was at the club with her the night she met Greg and his friends. Michelle and Clayton had exchanged numbers.
Clayton gives the police Michelle's number.
She agreed to come in and speak with them about this.
Thank you for coming in.
You're welcome.
We obviously want to talk to you about an incident that happened this morning early.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no sense in being all around the bush.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what happened.
Michelle starts by confirming that she and her friend, Stacy Adams, went bar hopping on the night of June 27th.
We met some guys from New York. Everybody was having fun.
They find themselves on Saturday night at a club, having a good time. They think, oh, good, we got some people to hang out with.
The next day, which is Sunday, they was texting us like, do we want to come to the hospital?
Stacy was quick to accept the offer, but Michelle says she was more reluctant.
I already was like, no, because I don't know them like that. And I just met them. But she was texting me like, come over here, come over here.
At some point, Stacy told Michelle that she and the boys were on their way to pick her up.
I wouldn't answer my phone. I was trying to play like I'm asleep because I didn't want to go.
They ended up continuing the night without her.
But a little while later, Michelle says she heard from Stacy again.
Girl, I told you I'm not coming.
She called her at about 2:45 in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, panicking.
She was like, y'all can't tell on me, y'all can't tell on me. And we like, what you talking about? What's wrong?
That's when Stacy dropped a bombshell.
She was telling her, y'all have to alibi me out.
She was like, My dude killed her boyfriend Buck.
What?
Houston police investigating the murder of Gregory Moore have been looking for a young woman named Stacy Adams, who was with Greg during the shooting.
Initially, police were concerned that Stacy could be another victim of the crime, but now they have to consider the possibility she was in on it.
Now, in speaking with Stacy's friend, Michelle, that possibility seems more and more likely.
Michelle admitted her friend Stacy wasn't as single as she presented herself to be.
She indicated she received a very frantic phone call from Stacy, and she had let her know that her boyfriend had shot and killed one of the guys they had met clubbing.
She was like, my dude killed her boyfriend Buck.
What? I know, I'm freaking out.
According to Michelle, Stacy went on to explain that her boyfriend James had been spying on her that day.
Stacy's boyfriend found out she was messaging with Gregory. He was not happy about that.
His name's James. I don't know his last name. I wish I knew it. He got a toy in family. He screenshot the messages to her and like, you.
That's also how James found out where Stacy was.
The Instagram app allows you to share your location, so he can literally log into it and see on her locations where she is.
The boyfriend was able to track Stacy to where Gregory and his friends were staying by her social media. And when they get to the house, he jumps out, rolls up on the two of them.
She was like that. Her boyfriend took with the dude, and he shot him at least like 5 times.
Come with me if you know what's good for you.
After the shot stopped, Stacy did leave the scene with her boyfriend.
Even though Michelle doesn't know James's full name, she's able to provide the investigators with other useful information.
She had a very good idea of where he lived, and through that information, we were able to determine what cars are registered at that address, which came back to matching the car that they fled the scene in.
DMV records show that the vehicle in question is registered to a 21-year-old pizza delivery driver named James Ray Lane.
They pull his driver's license photo and present it to Michelle.
You recognize who this person is?
That's James.
That's James.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, detectives have to wonder if the mysterious second cell phone they found at the crime scene belongs to James Lane.
In an effort to try to put all these pieces together, the detectives ring the phone number that they have for James Ray Lane. And the phone that they found at the house at the murder scene begins to ring.
Bingo.
With that, we were clearly able to establish that he was in fact there, and we got to a point where we were comfortable in that James Lane was in fact our suspect. And after we had a warrant for his arrest, then our tactical operations team then began the surveillance.
They start by staking out James's home.
Police set up surveillance. However, after several days, James does not show up and they are not able to locate Stacy either.
Next, the investigators go after their suspect's vehicle.
They learn that his vehicle is leased from a local car lot.
And when detectives contact the car lot, they're met with a shocking piece of information.
The dealership said he's here now. He's here now.
Houston police immediately move in to make the arrest.
Stacy was there with him too.
James was arrested. Stacy was just traveling with him, and she agreed to come to our office and talk to us about what happened.
At police headquarters, the investigators placed James and Stacy into separate interview rooms for questioning.
They decide that Stacy is the first person that they want to talk to.
We might as well jump on off into here, okay? And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of what I do. The situation you're involved in, the truth is your best friend, okay? I want you to think about that as we talk about what happened last weekend. Is that a fair approach?
Yeah.
As Stacy begins to tell her story, it lines up with what the detectives have already heard from other witnesses.
Saturday, I went out to this little bar. I got drunk, and I met some guys.
She and Michelle met the fellas from New York that night at a club.
So we got to exchange numbers.
Stacy also confirms that she'd hung out with Gregory and his friends at their Airbnb the following night.
She admitted to, in fact, being there. She admitted to how she came to know the victim and his friends. But when we got to the real meat and potatoes of the shooting, she had a little different story about it.
This is what is real important. What happens? Okay?
She shared with us that she had no idea who the person was. He was masked up.
You do that on name.
Yeah? Okay. What did he say?
Nothing.
Stacy also denies leaving the scene of the crime with the shooter after he ceased fire.
What happened after the shooting?
I was in shock. Then we went our separate ways.
What do you mean went your separate ways?
I left. I went to move in the house.
Yeah? Okay. And how did you leave?
We walked. My brain out like in that area.
She said she just walked away and went to her grandmother's house, who lived nearby, and then called people to come get her.
The detectives aren't buying it.
If you walk to your grandmother's house, give me your grandmother's name, her phone number, maybe even her address. Let's go talk to her, back up your alibi. But she couldn't.
Detectives also have the cell phone footage from the neighbor, which they believe shows Stacy getting in James's car and leaving with him.
There's also the fact that she told Michelle a very different story than what she's telling detectives now. Her current version of events just doesn't check out.
I just straight confronted her with the fact that that's not true. That part of it is completely fabricated, and we're going to have to do better.
I think so, yeah.
Nope. Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the truth, but that's what we did here.
Police in Houston, Texas have zeroed in on 21-year-old James Ray Lane as their main suspect in the shooting death of Gregory Moore.
He was jealous. He was upset that his girlfriend, Stacy, might have been cheating on him, and he took it out on someone who didn't even know that she had a boyfriend.
But according to Stacy, James is innocent.
Stacy told the investigators that a man with a black mask shot Gregory Moore.
She said that she didn't know who the gunman was.
The investigators believe she's lying.
I share with her that if I don't believe it, a jury's not ever going to believe it either.
The truth is going to be very important for you right now. I sit here today, I mean, it could either make you a witness, to make you part of the crime, and to make you a suspect. So this is your opportunity to tell us the truth.
I always tell them, we understand sometimes things happen that are out of your control, but we can't make it worse by lying about it.
Finally, Stacy starts to break down.
I think so, yeah.
Nope.
I think so, too.
Not at this point.
Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the truth in what we call the little room, but we generally get there, and that's what we did here.
Stacy finally admits on the night she went home with Gregory, her boyfriend James was blowing up her phone.
Everything okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
A lot of them I'm taking screenshots and not doing anything. I was really ignoring him because I was having fun at that point. I didn't want to argue with him. Okay. And he just kept calling and kept it.
She's getting text messages from James. He's wondering, where are you? Who are you with?
James had gotten into a tablet device that Stacy owned, and that was how he was able to access all her social media, the same tablet police found at the scene of the crime.
But Stacy insists she had no idea James was tracking her location.
I don't know. I believe probably.
Stacy says when James ambushed them outside the Airbnb, she was just as shocked as Gregory.
James was clearly upset and jealous.
He beat on a defenseless man. Greg didn't have a knife. He didn't even have a pot to hit him with. He had nothing.
Why did you not call for any help?
I was scared. I was still in shock, and I never seen that when I said.
Come with me if you know what's good for you.
Stacy was in such shock that she actually did leave with James after the shooting.
Until the police got
She says that James then dropped her off in an area of southwest Houston called Meyerland.
On the street in Meyerland?
Could I have people?
She was unsure as to where James went or where the murder weapon was.
But they get together a few days later and decide to lay low at her cousin's house in southwest Houston.
After doing that for a few more days, they make their way to the car dealership, hoping that they can get a new car and drive out of town. And it is at a car dealership that they get busted.
I have no problem. I do not any of these problems.
But is she telling the truth?
Now the detectives make their way across the hall to talk to James to try to see if their stories will line up.
Houston detectives investigating the murder of Brooklyn native Gregory Moore have just taken a statement from 18-year-old Stacy Adams.
Stacy admitted to her boyfriend, James, being the gunman, but insisted she had no idea of what was going to go down.
Now, detectives are eager to hear James's side of the story.
There was a shooting that occurred, and this boy got killed. And I received information, a lot of information, that tells me you may have something to do with that. I'm going to give you an opportunity to tell us what happened.
Much to their surprise, he admits that he was on the scene.
You know, it's just an incident. What made you go there that night to the house where the shooting happened? You better go home. That was my too.
But James says after he showed up and found Stacy, the situation quickly got out of hand.
According to James, when he arrived, he told Stacy, "Let's go."
Come on.
I told her, let's go.
What you think you're doing?
Take my girl back home. Get your hands off me.
What do you mean you came at me?
When he indicates Gregory attacked him. He said he did what he needed to do in order to defend himself.
That's why he shot Gregory.
Unfortunately for James, the detectives know he's not being truthful.
James told the police, basically, he felt threatened by Gregory Moore. He had the 9mm. He shot Gregory Moore 10 times, killed a man. And so it's astounding that he would try to shift the blame.
Well, James, let me stop you. Don't start going down a path of lying, all right?
I just lay out to him, these are the facts. This is what we know, and this is your opportunity to tell us what happened.
You're gonna have to tell us what happened without some crazy story that doesn't make sense and it's not consistent with the evidence, okay? What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth. I'll tell you the truth.
After a little bit of time, he comes around to the most self-serving truth he can get to, and he asked me and my partner, what would you do if you saw someone handling your woman that way? I asked him to elaborate on that, and he wouldn't. But he put himself there, and then he put himself trying to justify the murder. And that was sufficient enough for us.
At the end of the interview, the investigators charged James with the murder of Gregory Moore.
I would like to have had a complete, total confession as to why he did it, but that's very hard for a lot of people to do.
Investigators conclude that James's girlfriend, Stacey Adams, was an innocent bystander in the crime.
Detectives do believe that Stacey is telling the truth about not knowing what James was going to do that night.
They ended up not charging her with any crime.
However, as prosecutors prepare for trial, they aren't planning to go easy on James.
Making the decision to drive 40 minutes all the way up to North Harris County and wait, lay in waiting for them to return. It's a passion-fueled, jealousy-fueled, immaturity-fueled crime.
This was not an act of self-defense. This was a cold, calculated murder.
James is now facing life in prison. Having an acquittal just seems highly unlikely.
So he decides to come to the table with the prosecutors to try to strike a deal to save some part of his life.
James finally confesses to investigators' version of events and admits to gunning down Gregory Moore in cold blood.
In exchange for a full confession, they do offer James a deal of 22 years, and he does accept this plea deal.
He's got to serve at least half of that before he can even be considered for parole.
For Gregory Moore's loved ones, the resolution in this case isn't enough.
James got 22 years. 22. In 22 years, James will still be old enough to have a family, to have children, to have a life.
This sentence is quite light, but James is 21 years old and has never so much as gotten a traffic ticket.
It's really heartbreaking because prosecutors even said after the sentencing, he never showed remorse to the victim's family. He never showed that he felt bad for the situation.
Gregory Moore should be alive today, enjoying his kids growing up. James Lane should be in the free world today, doing what kids his age should be doing. And neither one of those things are going to happen now.
Greg didn't have cancer. He wasn't in a car accident. He wasn't hit by a bus. He was shot. And that's a hard pill for me to swallow.
No one thinks this is going to happen to them when they are traveling. Maybe someone steals your wallet, but you certainly do not lose your life because you decide to give someone your phone number.
I often wonder when he was laying there, like, was he scared? Was he regretful? No, I hope where he's at, it's peaceful. I hope that he's in a beautiful place far than where we are. And I hope he's looking down on us because we miss him something terrible down here.
He's known for being a protector to the people he loves. Among the people who know Chance, he's a gentle giant.
He's tall, muscular, black, big black dude, like a really husky guy. And so he could be intimidating just by his stature. But if you knew him, he's really like a big teddy bear.
A stranger came up, started arguing with Chance back and forth, opened fire, and then ran off.
He was just reaching out for me, like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He couldn't really get the words out, but I just kept telling him I was there.
The family is just livid that nothing has been done.
A lot of the beef stems from one person having a beef with someone else, and now their whole family and friends are involved.
Sometimes the street has its own investigation and street justice is imposed, and it is almost always deadly.
That whole eye for an eye leaves us all blind.
At 3:30 p.m. on March 23, 2012, multiple 911 calls suddenly pour in from the 100 block of Kenmore Avenue on Syracuse's south side.
Syracuse is a small town. We have a big university. That's pretty much what we're known for, Syracuse University. Right outside, like literally down the street from the university, is the south side. Right below the university is poverty.
The south side of Syracuse is a high poverty area, a lot of violence. It can be scary. It can be scary for someone that does not know the area.
I was just fresh out of the academy as a police officer, and I remember the call, shots fired call came in, shooting, that a male had been shot. We were close by, so we were able to respond pretty quickly. So the scene was still very fresh, very chaotic, where people were outside, so there was people all over. The residents were pointing to where the victim was. I remember running up to the house, it was a white house, green porch, I'll never forget.
The victim, a black male in his 30s, lies just a few feet away.
There was a construction worker in the area that had quickly responded before we got there, and he was helping do some first aid. Then we took over, me and my partner.
He's shot. What appears to be, a single gunshot wound to his lower back.
There was still some level of consciousness, gasping for air. I remember that vividly. He grabbed onto the uniform and, said, "Help me."
Paramedics arrive, followed by several of the victim's family members who have gotten word of the shooting.
One of the first things we learned after talking to bystanders is that the victim is 33-year-old Chance Gathers.
He could see me. He was looking at me, reaching for me. He was just reaching out for me, like, I couldn't understand what he was saying. He couldn't really get the words out, but I just kept telling him I was there.
As Chance is loaded in the ambulance, the responding officers attempt to speak with him.
The only chance we might have to identify the suspect would be from what the victim tells us.
But Chance can no longer speak.
Basically just gasping for air. He couldn't talk.
He was very observant.
While still a young man himself, Chance's siblings began having kids. Chance quickly became the favorite uncle.
He would go get a haircut. He would have to go grab nephews and little cousins and godsons and always have a bunch of kids with him getting haircut just every week.
Chance was like one of those warm spirits that, like you say, made me feel safe and, always inquired and always would talk to me and ask me what I was thinking, how I was feeling. His hugs were unmatched.
He's known for being a protector to the people he loves. He's sort of among the people who know Chance, he's a gentle giant.
He's tall, muscular, black, big black dude, like a really husky guy.
And so he could be intimidating just by his stature. But if you knew him, he's really like a big teddy bear.
On the street, Chance learned to use his size to his advantage.
He was actually bullied a lot as a child, him and his big sister. They got into a lot of fights and picked on until it like kind of made him like, okay, I'm gonna show y'all. Like, and he had that chip on his shoulder for a long time. And it got him in prison, landed him in prison.
He was actually in jail for, I want to say like 11 years he did.
At the age of 30, Chance was released, and he was determined to stay out of prison for good.
When he came home, that's that inner battle that he was fighting. Like who he truly was, that God-fearing, praying man, family man, versus not wanting to back down from what he might have used to be or like what people perceive him to be. He really, that's not ever what he wanted, but like, he did have that battle. But some of the biggest things that he wanted to accomplish was to have his own family, raise his own family. He didn't have any children.
Within a couple of years, Chance felt steady enough to take a step in that direction. He started dating single mother Marisha Stenson.
Chance absolutely courted me. He was very persistent. And it was kind of like matter of fact, like, we're together now. And it wasn't in a way where I was like, run, you know? It was like he was really serious about me. Like any other connections that he had at the time, he clearly was like, look, I'm calling her, anybody, there's nobody but you.
We were talking, and he was like, yo, I love her. I love her. She's so beautiful. Like, yo, Nunu, you don't understand. Like, she do something to me.
6 months into the relationship, Chance popped the question.
He wanted to get married. He told me our date would be June 1st. He set a date and everything. He was really romantic.
Before they could make it to the altar, in April 2012, Chance and Marisha learned they were going to be parents.
When I finally did get pregnant, he was so happy. Like me, I'm like, oh, I got this 4-year-old already. I don't know if I really even need a baby, but if you're happy, I'm happy. Like we're doing this. But he was so excited.
He wasn't one just out here moving around with, you know, having kids with different women and things like that. Like this was gonna be his first child. He was proud. He was excited.
Chances at this point, he's really looking forward to the next phase in his life. Him and his girlfriend are expecting a child, and that's gonna be the biggest thing ever for Chance. This is someone looking ahead to a future with a child and a wife.
But just a few months into the pregnancy, a shooting in broad daylight has Chance fighting for his life. As doctors at University Hospital attempt to save the father-to-be, detectives arrive at the crime scene. They piece together the moments around the shooting.
He tried getting away when the suspect was shooting at him, and you could see that he was eating his food on the porch when that had happened. And it looked like he tried to escape into the backyard to prevent getting fired upon.
Instead, Chance was shot once in the back as he tried to flee.
We don't know where the suspect necessarily ran off to or if he ditched a firearm. So a scene like that, you end up taking almost the whole block that the homicide occurred on, putting up crime scene tape.
They began searching the entire block for physical evidence. Blood splatter, shell casings, things of that nature. They found multiple shell casings on the ground.
We have to figure out what happened. Everyone was still around, so we knew we had some witnesses.
A lot of people were there. It was broad daylight, so people saw this.
Witnesses eagerly point out a link between the gunman and the item police have just discovered.
Police discover a dark-colored cap, and after talking to witnesses, they discovered that it was the shooter's cap.
He had on a hat, a black and blue hat, and a white t-shirt.
If investigators can find the owner of the hat, they might also find the gunman.
Who would want Chance Gathers dead? Who is it that was so bold, they decided to just go up to him in broad daylight and shoot him right in front of people.
When detectives looking into the murder of 33-year-old Chance Gathers speak to those who witnessed the brazen crime, they learn the shooter was wearing a dark hat.
If the lab team can find DNA on this hat that was found on the ground, this would be the key to identifying the shooter.
Witnesses give details surrounding the moment the chaos broke out.
Chance was hanging out with a small group of friends on that porch.
We were sitting on a porch, and this young man, came up and he went to go, shooting up on a porch.
Witnesses explained that they did not recognize the shooter. They described that a stranger came up, started arguing with Chance back and forth, opened fire, and then ran off.
Given the fact that no one else was shot, detectives believe the shooter was after one man.
This does not appear to be a random shooting. This looks like a targeted shooting, that someone was trying to very specifically mark this person as their victim.
With no witnesses able to identify the shooter, investigators consider whether they're holding back.
There's people who saw this shooting and they know what happened. Easy enough, right? Just talk to them, solve the crime, right? That's not how it works.
We don't tend to get a lot of cooperation from the community, especially in those high crime areas. So we've had incidents where there's been a shots fired and we'll show up and people sitting on the front porch say they didn't hear or see anything. And just because you're wearing a badge doesn't mean that they're going to want to give information.
There's the don't snitch culture. It's not something that people are comfortable doing, and with good reason. Because if you go to the police and you cooperate and it's known, well, then there could be a target on you.
As investigators wrap up at the crime scene, Chance's friends and family rush to the hospital. They wait on pins and needles for news.
I ran to Upstate Hospital, like up the hill, full speed, no brakes, up the hill. And when I got there, a couple of my family was there. Some of his friends were there.
Nobody can answer questions. His mom gets there, a couple other family members get there. And, eventually they come out with the, I'm sorry, he didn't make it.
The bullet struck Chance in the lower back, and then it traveled up in his body, puncturing his kidney and his aorta, which caused him to bleed to death.
I've seen miracles happen at the hospital, but depending on that round and where it decided to travel in the body, it can just cause significant damage, which you don't have a chance to save them.
When my aunt, she just let out this like scream that like will make your skin crawl.
We just need you to identify the body. So his mother and I, we go to the room where he's like laying on a table, naked on the sheet. I mean, it was really hard. It was really hard because being pregnant by itself is already hard, but like dealing with grief and then not knowing what's next.
Word of Chance's passing reaches detectives.
Police were hopeful that Chance would be able to identify his shooter, but now they won't get that opportunity. Therefore, they must continue the investigation in order to get justice for Chance.
Who is this guy who walked up in broad daylight and shot a bullet, taking the life of Chance Gathers as he sat on a porch eating? Who is this person, and why did this person decide to commit this horrible act?
Still certain that Chance's death was a targeted attack, investigators take a look into his background. They learn that prior to his release from prison 3 years earlier, Chance had a reputation both on the streets and with police.
Chance Gather was someone that was on law enforcement's radar. Just looking back, even when he was 14, there was some contact with law enforcement. So there had been a significant time period. If you'd mentioned his name in roll call amongst other officers, he was well known.
Police discovered that Chance had a dark past. He had a criminal history stemming back all the way to 1999.
Chance has had some problems. He's been in a prison. He's been in prison for serious stuff.
Since his release, Chance walked a fine line between staying out of trouble with the law and on the street.
It's very difficult to get labels off of you when they're on. They're attached to you almost forever, unfortunately, especially in a small town like Syracuse. Everyone knows each other, so it's hard. And they talk.
To some people, Chance did have a reputation for being somewhat of a bully, right? The way he explained it to me was like, and what I actually saw was that he would only bully bullies.
You couldn't come around Chance and front like you was this big dog. Because if you big dog, he wants to see. Show me you big dog. He was Mr. Size You Up.
Chance is looking forward to this new part of his life, but the old part of his life is still there, and he's not shying away from it. You know, the old days of Chance being a guy to be reckoned with, he's still very aware of it, and so are other people. And that reputation is going to lead, unfortunately, to some real beefs.
Detectives also learned that Chance's tough guy image hadn't completely protected him.
Chance was being both a participant and also a victim of crime. He had been slashed across his face in the past.
In 1991, Chance arrived at the hospital with a stab wound, but the details of that stabbing were never made clear to police.
Investigators consider whether Chance's killer was attempting to settle a score.
Due to Chance's extensive criminal history, the list of suspects was pretty long.
There's a thing called street justice, and unfortunately, there's no statute of limitations on it. If the street is viewing you as someone who's behind something and there's people that want to hold you accountable for it, unfortunately, that very often results in tragic death.
Detectives in Syracuse are trying to identify the man who fatally shot Chance Gathers in broad daylight.
The reality is that Chance's reputation is going to follow him. And because as much of a gentle giant as he can be, he wasn't always a gentle giant on the streets.
Detectives had their work cut out for them in order to narrow down the list of suspects. Detectives went down a list of anyone who could be seeking payback, and then they moved on and also eliminated anyone who had attempted against Chance's life prior to his death. Detectives worked their way down a list of people who may have felt Chance had wronged them, and one by one, they eliminated suspect after suspect.
And no one in Chance's circle is offering help.
No one came forward. It's either due to fear, it's either due to, well, let the police handle it. Well, the police need help with solving these cases.
A huge problem for police in upstate New York is getting community trust. Because at the end of the day, to solve a crime, you need people to come forward.
2 days after Chance's murder, Syracuse police set up an anonymous tip line, hopeful that the promise of secrecy will encourage someone to come forward.
We have an app where people can send anonymous tips, and I can't even look up your name, even if you want to, but we give people that anonymous option.
Anytime you open up a tip line, you have to take the good with the bad. And now detectives are having to sit through information that's senseless and really has nothing to do with the case.
Most of the tips are dead ends, except for one.
Not only does this person say they witnessed the murder, they also say they recognize the shooter.
So there's a name making its way to police. Police are starting to hear the name Demetrius Hackett.
Demetrius Hackett was born on July 21st, 1992. The second son to Kimberly Freeman and Benjamin Hackett.
The Hackett family was very well known on the west side of Syracuse. They go back generations. Demetrius had an older brother named Pierre, as well as some uncles and many cousins.
A pivotal moment for the Hackett family came on February 23, 1997, when Pierre and Demetrius's grandmother, Virginia, was shot and killed inside her home. 2 of her teenage grandsons were also injured in the shooting.
It was later determined that the shooting was intended for another member of Demetrius' family.
It's the opposite. It's a 19-year-old kid who's a football player. He doesn't have any sort of rap sheet. He doesn't have any sort of violent reputation. He's a good kid. And he's someone who, at face value, is why are you looking at this kid? He's someone who has his whole future ahead of him. And frankly, you know, why would he be involved in something like that?
Then detectives learned that the Hackett family had recently suffered another tremendous loss.
Demetrius' older brother, Pierre, was killed in a shooting in the same neighborhood just 7 months prior.
Investigators take a look at the case file on Pierre's murder. In that moment, the connection between suspect and victim becomes crystal clear.
And whose name appears at the top of the list as a prime suspect? None other than Chance Gathers.
Homicide detectives in Syracuse, New York, finally have a potential suspect in the March 2012 murder of Chance Gathers. The name Demetrius Hackett comes by way of an anonymous tip.
On August 1st, 2011, Demetrius Hackett's brother, Pierre Hackett, was shot and killed broad daylight in the city of Syracuse as he's walking down the street.
During the investigation into Pierre Hackett's murder, a name kept popping up: Chance Gathers.
Investigators dig into the case file.
Pierre Hackett was walking with his cousin, Leroy Hackett Jr., and Leroy's 2 children, leaving a store on the south side of Syracuse.
Suddenly, gunshots rang out.
Pierre told his cousin and the children to run to safety, and he then turned in the direction of the gunfire and was shot in the head once. His father, Benjamin Hackett, was sitting in the car and watched as his son was gunned down right in front of his eyes. A neighbor administered CPR until the ambulance arrived, but Pierre later died in the hospital.
Witnesses on the scene did not see the shooter, but all agreed the gunfire came from the direction of a nearby intersection.
The gunman used a pine tree at that intersection to stay concealed.
According to the report, Chance became a suspect when investigators learned of a beef between him and Pierre.
A lot of the beef stems from one wants to overpower the other, or one person having a beef with someone else, and now their whole family and friends are involved. You know, just the social pressure of, oh, if you don't take care of it, well, I'll take care of it.
It could be a beef over anything, a slight, a perceived slight, someone hitting on a girlfriend.
There were unrelated problems between Chance's friend Pep and Pierre's friend Suave. Pep and Suave were enemies because allegedly, Pep shot Suave's brother Dave years prior.
Suave and Pierre Hackett, they were beefing with Pep, so they still had active beef or whatever. And now Pierre is around or whatever. Pep is hanging with Chance.
In 2011, Pep asked Chance to come along with him while he attempted to broker peace between himself and Suave. When they arrived, Pierre was also there to back up Suave. But instead of striking a truce, tempers flared, mainly Pep's.
When they pull up, Pep start talking crazy, like complete opposite of what was supposed to transpire. And that commenced the beef between them.
Suddenly, Pierre and Chance were also mired in the explosive conflict. When Pierre is gunned down in broad daylight just weeks later, Chance's one-time friend turns on him.
Next thing you know, Pep is over there at the Hackett's dad's house telling them Chance did it.
The Hackett family took Pep's word for the truth.
The Hackett family is convinced that Chance has killed Pierre.
But Chance specifically told me out his mouth, he said, man, I ain't do that, man.
Investigators working the case failed to find any evidence tying Chance or Pep to the murder.
As of March 2012, when Chance Gathers was gunned down, the murder of Pierre Hackett was still considered an open investigation.
Pierre's family is convinced Chance Gathers pulled the trigger that killed Pierre. The police are not so sure, or if they are, the police aren't bringing any charges. The family is just livid that nothing has been done.
Especially Pierre's doting younger brother, Demetrius.
Demetrius is a very emotional guy. He's hot, he's angry, his brother was murdered. He is just completely devastated, as is his family. It's a horrible situation. Demetrius Hackett, someone with no criminal history, who under any other circumstances would never be looked at as a possible suspect in a homicide, is now looking like a prime suspect in the homicide of Chance Gathers. Because he blames Chance for killing his brother, and this is eating away at him.
There's now possible motive for Demetrius to want to retaliate against Chance. There's also a witness who identified Demetrius at the shooting. So now, Demetrius has to be brought in for questioning.
But when detectives go in search of Demetrius Hackett, he's nowhere to be found.
No one, not even his parents, seem to know where he's gone. They don't know if he's laying low, letting the heat die down, or on the run. The fact of the matter is that they cannot get any information as to his whereabouts. They knew that if they had any chance of finding him, they would have to get a warrant and the Marshal Squad involved, and hopefully get him in alive.
Detectives in Syracuse have issued a warrant for the arrest of Demetrius Hackett.
They had information that the Hackett family believed that Chance was responsible for the death of Demetrius' older brother, Pierre, back in August 2011. Which would lead them to also believe that Chance's murder was perhaps a retaliation. When detectives cannot find Demetrius, they worry that perhaps he might have fled the state. So they go door to door in different neighborhoods in Syracuse trying to find him. Despite the fact that detectives kept hearing that Demetrius was a good kid, he was still considered armed and dangerous, and their job was to get him off the streets as soon as possible.
We just lost a life, and we have to get justice for this life.
Finally, on April 9th, 2012, more than 2 weeks after Chance's murder, the warrant squad tracks down Demetrius Hackett.
So 18 days after the homicide, Demetrius Hackett, who's been in hiding, suddenly is arrested. Demetrius is arrested and charged with the murder of Chance Gathers.
When they arrested Demetrius and charged him, and I found out like the motive was because he thought Chance killed his brother. It was just a real sad situation. 2 guys dead and 1 in jail.
During his interrogation, Demetrius denies any involvement in the murder of Chance Gathers.
Syracuse police are grilling Demetrius about this incident. Demetrius isn't budging. Demetrius isn't going to confess to this crime.
Even without a confession or any physical evidence connecting him to the crime, Demetrius Hackett is charged with second-degree murder.
When Demetrius is arraigned at the courthouse the following day, his mother and father waste no time pleading their son's innocence to the media that gathered outside of the courthouse.
They allege that Chance Gathers had been leveling threats at their family in the months since Pierre's murder.
The Hackett family say that Chance has been terrorizing them for months as they're mourning the death of their loved one. They say he's making their life a living hell on the streets of Syracuse, New York.
Investigators stay focused, knowing they must tighten their case against Demetrius. And there is one item in evidence that could give them what they need.
The baseball cap found at Chance's murder scene dropped by the killer. The DNA lab was able to pull a DNA sample from the baseball cap.
They want to test that hat he left at the scene for DNA. It's a risky move because, yes, DNA is extremely powerful evidence. That can cut both ways because as sure as a DNA match could convict Demetrius, if there's no match, that could be an immediate, huge piece of evidence to just let Demetrius get an acquittal.
Investigators are willing to take the risk, but Demetrius isn't.
Demetrius was asked to provide DNA sample at his own will, but he refused.
Investigators in Syracuse are desperate to strengthen the case against 19-year-old Demetrius Hackett in the shooting death of his alleged enemy, Chance Gathers.
So the police and prosecutors, they think they have their man in Demetrius Hackett. They want to test that hat left at the scene for DNA.
Demetrius, while in custody, was asked to provide DNA sample at his own will, but he refused. So prosecutors went in front of the judge in May 2012 and asked that he was court-ordered to provide DNA sample.
If there's no match, Demetrius is probably going to walk from this crime because what's tying him to this murder? Nothing, other than the fact that his name has come up. And without DNA evidence, I don't think you have a murder case against Demetrius Hackett. The DNA is going to tell the tale. Is Demetrius involved in this crime or is he not?
A judge signs off on the subpoena. Investigators collect a saliva sample from Demetrius, and then they wait.
The DNA testing comes back, and yes, it's a match. That was the hat being worn by Demetrius Hackett. His DNA is now on it, and what's more, witnesses saw him wearing it. This is really hard now for Demetrius to say he was not involved. You can now put Demetrius Hackett at that crime scene, and you could put him there wearing that hat.
Demetrius and his attorneys maintain his innocence despite the new evidence.
His lawyers are starting to consider a new tactic. Demetrius was under an extreme emotional distress at the time he pulled the trigger. This means we're no longer going to deny that he shot Chance, but we're going to show you why he did it.
Extreme emotional distress is a response to a traumatic event where you have a loss of self-control, intense, overwhelming emotions in response to, the traumatic event. Demetrius had good grades. He didn't have a criminal record. This was a traumatic event for him, which may have caused him, to be dealing with extreme emotional distress. This is why his lawyer wanted to argue this for his case.
Prosecutors must consider that this argument could work.
Who's to say that a jury may look at him and say, oh man, we're gonna let this kid get acquitted because he was obviously in a horrible situation. The prosecution knows that, and Demetrius and his attorneys know that. But they also know that if the jury comes back and says, no, it's murder, he's looking at a life sentence.
Prosecutors pursue a plea. On August 30th, 2013, almost a year and a half after Chance's murder, Demetrius Hackett pleads guilty to a reduced charge of first-degree manslaughter.
Demetrius has pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter. He's gonna get a chance to finally speak about what happened on the day that he shot and killed Chance Gathers. Demetrius tells the judge this was a lose-lose situation. Chance Gathers was terrorizing my family. If I didn't take this into my own hands, I'd be dead. He felt it was a kill or be killed type situation and that he made the decision to take out Chance Gathers before Chance Gathers could take out him and members of his family.
Demetrius said in court that he felt like pretty much he had no choice. He said that Chance was threatening him and his family.
The judge responds.
So the judge tells Demetrius that there was no criminal case against Chance Gathers. The police hadn't charged him with that. So even if everybody on the street and in the family knew or heavily suspected Chance killed Pierre, you can't kill someone just because you believe they killed your brother. The court system is not going to justify an eye for an eye. They're just not going to do it.
The judge sentences Demetrius Hackett to 20 years at the Wind Correctional Facility in upstate New York. He'll be eligible for parole in 2029.
At the end of the day, this is a very tragic story about retribution and how the cycle of violence just leads to prison and more tragedy. It certainly does in this case. At the end of the day, Chance Gathers is dead, and Demetrius Hackett is going to be in a prison for the next 20 years. Demetrius wasn't a bad kid. Demetrius was on the right track. The only thing that happened to Demetrius was his family became victim to the cycle of violence in this country. And unfortunately, Demetrius decided to handle it himself.
In this case, one man's struggle with grief became another family's permanent loss.
The changes he made right before he died, like, I'd rather have had that chance just for a little while than the old Chance, because, like, I know for sure he's in heaven. At some point, you do have to break the cycle. Somebody has to do it. I feel like it's only us that can change the culture of the streets and the way that we conduct ourselves.
Shining bright in the light. Everybody moving, dancing wild and free. This funky groove got you and me.